4, I think it's Bart, and it's caller number 3 is Tony. The way they show up on the screen. I think we have those right at 4 o'clock.
Okay, well, I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. We have attendance taken care of.
We do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. Is there any public comment requested?
Nobody expressed interest requested.
No public comment. Are there any items in the consent agenda that any of the commissioners would like removed for further discussion? Then I'll call for a motion to approve the consent agenda. So moved. Okay. Second. Sound second. All in favor? Aye. Contrary? Aye. The motion passes. So there are no items removed. So that takes us right to number 6 on the presentation from the Bloomington and Normal Water Reclamation District. So,
if I may just introduce our speaker today, Mr. Randy Stein. Some of you have known him for years. He is the retired executive director of the Water Reclamation District. The current executive director, Tim Irvin, has to go to another meeting out of town, and so he's not able to join us today, although we missed his name on the agenda. What's that?
He might make it, but I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got his email, but yeah, hopefully he can make it by the end of the meeting. But we so glad to have Randy to be with us, knowledgeable for the system. Just usually get to the water, stormwater and other type of water issue. We don't see those other than flooding because all the pipes are underground. But it's a really important part of the infrastructure. But when it rains, water run off, when we drain the water, it's an essential part of the society, almost not just the community. So we're so glad, although he's retired, he's willing to spend time with us. He was with the district for over 30 years, 30 and a half. And so, yeah, we're knowledgeable and we're so glad to have you.
Thank you. I know I'm going to say we in this conversation, but what I mean is the district, because I am retired now. I retired April 15th after 30 and a half years. Pretty rewarding career. So I'll just get on with it. So the Bloomington Normal Water Reclamation District is headquartered on West Oakland Avenue. We are a taxing body, very similar to the airport authority, independent. We treat wastewater for Bloomington, Normal, by contract with Downs and Bloomington Public Township, Crestwick area. Along with that wastewater comes stormwater in some parts of the community. Some parts of the community have combined sewers where you have stormwater and wastewater combining. Some parts of the community is separated. A lot of people don't know where the district is or what we do, but we treat wastewater. The district's facilities are insured for just over $250 million in infrastructure. That does not count the property or the pipes in the ground. And if you're going to include all of that, probably be looking at another $400 million in value for the district. So somewhere between half and $650,000 or $650 million in value for the districts. The district was organized. The district was, so we treat wastewater from Bloomington, Normal, Crestwick. The communities own their own sewer system. City of Bloomington owns a sewer system. Downs own their sewer system. Town of Normal owns their sewer system. The district has a series of interceptor sewers that intercept these old sewers that the town and the city have. Back in the early 1900s, sewer systems in the town of Normal, city of Bloomington, discharged in Sugar Creek. So in 1919, the district was formed, and we developed interceptor sewers that intercept those pipes that go to the creek, and then we transmit down to the wastewater treatment plant. The district owns 2 wastewater treatment plants. We've got an 80-acre site on West Oakland Avenue. Got a 280-acre site down south, just off of 700 North Road, west of Downs, north of Hayworth. And we have what's called a tree farm on the Shirley Road, and that's about 238 acres. The infrastructure we own in town is the interceptor sewers I talked about, and they are the main trunks of the tree which collect from the city of Bloomington's town of Normal sewers. Downs comes in on a pump force main just almost to the front door of the district and enters the plant down there. So we have 2 facilities. The big one is on West Oakland Avenue. The smaller one is to the southeast. There are other facilities around. There's a couple of pump stations, but those are the big units. Currently, we have a staff of 34. So 33 is wrong there. You briefly talked about stormwater. So when you have a big storm in town, there is too much water for the system to handle throughout the community. So there is a CSO, Combined Sewer Overflow Lagoon on West Washington Avenue. It holds 80 million gallons of water. So when you get a big rain, instead of discharging everything into the creek, the first 80 million gallons in the storm, in excess of what the pump plants can handle, goes into the lagoon for treatment at a later date. Organizational overview. The district is governed by 3 trustees, which are appointed by the county board. The executive director is in charge as the CEO for the district. The assistant executive director and operations director then maintain their different departments and facility. We have operations, maintenance lab, engineering, and administration and finance. Next one. Before I get into history, the district's got 3 revenue sources. It receives money from property taxes, about $5 million a year, about half, a little less than half the budget for property taxes. The tax rate the district operates in is fixed and it's capped. So you just can't go to the well and add more money by raising taxes. Taxes are capped. Another large portion, again almost half, comes from user fees. Every time you turn on the tap and the water goes down the drain, actually anytime you turn on the tap, there's a bill added to your water bill from the town or the city that comes to the district. It's the BNWRD fee on your city water bills. That pays for treatment of the water that goes down the pipe. The third thing is connection fees. Connection fees when you build a house in town, brand new, connect to the system. There's a one-time charge of $2,850 to tap onto the system. That's one time forever. If you sell a house and somebody else buys it, the fee's already been paid. The fee varies by usage. If you're going to build a fast food restaurant, probably $50,000 for that connection fees in that range. And again, if that fast food restaurant gets sold, it's already been paid for. If you build a shoe store and they have a small amount of usage, you have a small connection fee. Somebody comes in and turns that shoe store into a taco stand, which uses more water, he's going to pay the difference. So that's the price to connect to the system. That pays for the capital infrastructure that's needed to keep the district running. So, as I said before, in the teens, Bloomington and Normal sanitary sewers discharge to Sugar Creek. You can see right here, That is raw sewage going into Sugar Creek. This is the overflow that would run when there's a storm. So that's normal sewage, and then this large pipe is a stormwater overflow. How did I do that?
I didn't know that.
Cool.
Yeah.
So that's the combined sewer overflow, and that's how the sewers in town discharge the creek. So the interceptor sewers that the district started building in 1920s intercepted all those discharges. The combined sewer overflow stayed open. Next. So the district was formed under the Sanitary District Act of 1917. There are many districts in the state of Illinois formed under this act. Champaign, Urbana, Decatur, Springfield come to mind, but there's quite a few more. It was formed by a court order in 1990. People downstream of this community got tired of all the stuff that was in Sugar Creek, flowing past farms, and people, quite honestly, were getting sick. There were about 200 people that died from disease in the 20s in Bloomington because there were discharges into the creek above the water supply in Bloomington and Normal. Water supply in Bloomington Normal is at about Division Street. And normally, you know where the water department is? They had a well there. Normal had one just upstream on the other side of the creek. And you had the hospital and everybody upstream discharging in the creek. So there was an outbreak, not 100% caused by that, but it was contamination of drinking water, cholera, and typhoid fever. So in 1990, the district was formed. 4 referendums. I think the 4th referendum, the district was formed and a bond was passed. And if they didn't pass that 4th one, the mayors of the 2 communities might be going to jail. I mean, they're threatened with jail time. So 1919 court order, the district was formed, and then by 1928, a plant was built, a trickling filter plant was built on the west side of West Oakland, way out on West Oakland. Since that time, there has been many, many changes in increases to the plant size, in capacity, and performance. Next slide. 1926 to 1929, we constructed a plant, modern earth moving equipment. Seriously, we got a boatload of pictures that show all the handwork that went in there. The concrete, it's incredible what those people do. Go ahead. Today, there's an 80-acre site in the West Plant. The plant is divided into the old trickling filter plant, which we call Plant 1. There's a Plant 2, which is solids processing, and Plant 3, which is a third plant. This was the 20s, 40s, 60s, 70s, and 90s. And there's a little dab in there from 2007. This plant is capable of 22.5 million gallons a day on a daily basis, treating wastewater. It treats wastewater, everything west of Veterans Parkway. In a storm, it can handle 45 full treatment, 45 million. And we can do an extended treatment to another 42.5. That's before we push it into the 80 million gallons. We're doing. So just over 90 million gallons can run through, or 87 can run hydraulically through that plant. There's 3 stations of treatment: primary, secondary, tertiary, and advanced disinfection on the tail end of it. And a lot of that's going to get bulldozed. I'll get into that in a minute. Next slide. In 2000, construction was started on a plant down off of 700, which serves everything east of Veterans, just about. It's a 7.5 million gallon plant. It's got plans for expansion to 15. Cost $60 million, roughly. And at that time, That was the most expensive public works project funded by the local economy to date. You know which one was before that? The 1926 construction of the West Plant. 60 million in 2005. To replace that plant today would be well over 100 million. Started operation June 1st, 2005. Currently serves about 35,000 people. Next one. And that's a picture of it. This is on an 80-acre, this is a 15-acre site on a 280-acre facility. We have wetlands, we have walking trails. There are a dedicated refuge to the east, which is open to the public, daylight hours only. And why such a big piece of property? Well, when O'Hare Airport was built, it was out of sticks. People built houses around it, and now then the complaints start coming in about the noisy airplanes. So this is kind of one of the reasons why it's out there. It's surrounded by a lot of property that won't be built on. But the selection of the site required a nice hillside and a receiving stream. The discharge of this plant is down to the little Kickapoo Creek in the corner. This is part of our wetlands that are constructed. Notice the incoming water, kind of gray, brown, and that's the clear water as it's getting ready to leave. That wasn't enhanced, by the way. Next slide. A lot of milestones. So the first plant was 5.5 million gallons a day, 1926 and 1929. And at that time, the district established sewer use ordinances for Bloomington Normal. That's required by now it's required by US EPA. We converted that 2-stage plant into a 3-stage and added disinfection and tertiary filtration. It's kind of like taking the 4-cylinder engine on your car and putting a 6 and then an 8 and then supercharging that engine. So the district currently has capacity for full treatment daily average flow of 30 million gallons a day. Design max is double that, 60. So chlorine used to be a tool used for disinfection in the creek. Before this, we use gaseous chlorine, but it's a metal gas, and it's a weapon of mass destruction used in World War I. And it does great. It kills all the germs. Not so good on the fish in the creek either. So in the 80s, we got an exemption from using chlorine. By the way, chlorine is a very dangerous thing to handle with a plant. Whenever they're changing out tanks, you have to have 3 people that are masked up in SCBA equipment and ready to push the panic button if they get a leak, because it is bad stuff. So we got rid of the chlorine and then replaced it later with UV disinfection. It uses a high intensity light to disinfect the water. That is about 1/3 of the electric bill at both plants. It's a lot, but it's not as destructive. The CSO facility we talked about, 80 million gallon facility. We commissioned a $250,000 benthic macrovertebrate study of Sugar Creek. That was to determine how healthy Sugar Creek was and Little Kickapoo because of the coming regulations that we're going to have to meet. That defines how much treatment we have to give. Future IEPA mandates. That's no longer, the word future is no longer applicable. It's now. So mandates by EPA, US EPA and IEPA mandate that wastewater plants of 1 million gallons a day and larger have to reduce phosphorus discharge to a very low level. So in order to do that, all the processes for these wastewater treatment plants have to change. So the anticipated costs there are 150 to 175 million to rebuild the Type 29 plant. This is a couple years old. That's about 200 million now. And Southeast plant's upgrade will remain about 17 to 20. So there are certain processes that allow us to eliminate phosphorus. And the old plant has a process that does not eliminate phosphorus. Does a great job doing what it's supposed to. But when you have to convert to removing phosphorus, we have to get rid of the old plant and build a new one. In order to do that, we've got to do it while the plant is running. So we got to change the piston engine on the airplane to a jet while we're flying. So kind of a tough challenge. Next slide. So we serve about 140,000 people, residential, commercial, and some stormwater. Industrial contribution is pretty small. It's about 3% of the total load. Got a high number of restaurants on this facility. That means grease. And we have 2 universities and colleges. And honestly, ISU and Wesleyan, when they're in it, they're good for about 1.5 million gallons a day. So we do see it spike. People have asked me during the Super Bowl, when the commercials come on, do we see a big flush in the top? No, we don't see it. It takes too many factors to get there. Next slide. So the user fee, this was last year's numbers. You pay $7.43 for the first 2,000 gallons of treatment, and then $2.06 per 1,000 gallons. And this is of the potable water consumed. You know, I don't know what your your water bills are running, but the Benward fee on the bills are 15, 16, 18 bucks a month. The fees just went up Sunday, I think, May 1st. And I think, don't hold me to this, but I think Tim said it was 5%. A big part of that is planning for this construction of the new, well, it might be 7. So it might be 30 cents a month, 35 cents a month more.
So your capital funding for that is
Pardon
generated,
me?
the capital funding for the upcoming projects
Yeah,
is generated from the taxes.
Yes, we're not going to raise taxes. Okay. It's going to come from user fees. It's going to come from a revolving loan program that the federal government has. We're in a situation, the district is a very healthy situation with funding. You look at a community like Springfield, who did all their conversion and went up 400% on their user fees. Aurora went up 900%, 9 times for their treatment facility. The district's probably going to, I don't know where Tim's going with this, but it's going to be quite low compared to everybody else. There's a lot of communities in Central Illinois that are scratching their head how they're going to get to it. That's why Tim's at a meeting today. We also get sundry revenue from septic and grease waste, leachate, and methane sales. So septic tank comes in from the county, and we only take septics from within McLean County, or grease waste from restaurants. We use that and put that in the system. Actually, the grease, we can make more gas with it, methane gas. So wastewater comes into the plant, what leaves? Clean water, methane, and solids. People call it sludge. It's run through another process called anaerobic digestion. We land apply that on crop fields, fertilizer. The methane we sell in Cargill on the west side of town. We don't make money on it, but it offsets costs. Next slide. So West Plain hydraulic profile, there are 3 sections of that facility. You can see the capacities, DAF, EMF, daily average, daily max, millions of gallons a day. It's a lot of water. I think I calculated one time, the building next door, you know what I'm talking about? What's that building where the health department is? You fill that up with water, it's 1 million gallons. So I had nothing to do that day, so go ahead. Next one.
Did you identify where the lagoon is?
Pardon?
Did you identify where the lagoon is in town?
The lagoon is on West Washington. Excuse me, right here. So we have rules and regs to follow. So the plant operates under an NPDES permit, National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. Requires us to discharge 10 milligrams per liter, or 10 parts per million of chemical, biological, oxygen demand, bad stuff in the water that consumes oxygen. Total suspended solids is 12. Ammonia has seasonal limits right now. This is May, so we're in the lowest level of ammonia that we can discharge to the creek, which 1.5. Why is it seasonal? Fish are cold-blooded creatures. In the wintertime, their metabolism is much slower. They don't absorb or take up the ammonia as fast as they do at this time of year. And then you got early life cycle going on in the creek right now where you got little fry being hatched. They're sensitive to ammonia. Fecal coliform, 400 colonies. That's a pretty low amount, so we have to disinfect before discharge. pH between 6 and 9, and very little chlorine we're allowed. Dissolved oxygen, it's got to be fizzy. Can't have flat water. You have to go out to the creek with lots of oxygen because there's critters in the creek that need that oxygen. Next slide. Pretty much the same for the southeast. The biggest difference, this is year round. The west plant, it's May through October, they have to disinfect. This plant, they disinfect year round. And of course, the capacities are smaller. Nothing else important here. So the nuts and bolts of it, I'm sorry you can't see this very much, but we do mechanical screening of the waters that comes into the plant. This removes all the debris that flows in. Any object bigger than 10 millimeters gets screened out and put into a dumpster. We also take out grit that comes in sand and gravel. Then it goes to our aeration tanks. I'm sorry, it's kind of out of order. Mechanical screening, primary clarifier goes to an aeration tank. An aeration tank is like soup that we have a lot of air blowing into it. And the soup is a concentrated, recycled wastewater. The bacteria that naturally occurs in the wastewater is a soil-based bacteria that break down the ammonia from ammonia to nitrate. It's a process that you have to manage. We have to make sure the bugs aren't too old or too young, but actual bugs are actually, you can see them under a microscope. We like them about 12 days old, 8 to 12 days. If they're older, they're not as efficient like old people. They eat, they don't do much work. And if they're young, same thing. They eat, but they don't do too much work. You like the teenagers. UV disinfection is kind of cool. I think that's one of the neatest things out there because it disinfects the water. Water's passing through a tube past these light bulbs, and in a quarter second, that water is disinfected. But you check quick. Go ahead. So I told you about coming up as a nutrient for phosphorus and nitrogen. Illinois has decided that wastewater treatment plants have to bring the phosphorus numbers down. What comes into the plants about 3 parts per million, and we got to knock it down. And we do knock it down to 5 to 6 coming in, and we knock it down to 2.5 or so going out. But we got to get it down to 0.5. That's tough. We're better off in Decatur. They got 30 coming into their plant, and they got to get it down to 0.5. They've got an enormous task. So you know what eutrophication is? It's all the water turning green, like in summertime, you get a pond that turns green. That's kind of like eutrophication. So it's intended to keep the Gulf of Mexico from turning green. Agriculture is a major contributor on the watershed. So Illinois has said that agriculture is going to focus on nitrates, nitrogen side, and wastewater treatment plants and point sources are going to work on the phosphorus side. It's costly, large carbon footprint. There are chemical ways to do that. That's extremely expensive, and the chemicals are nasty. We want to stay away from that. Go forward. We need to get rid of the leaky systems, the sewer systems in town. Leaky. When I mean leaky, water comes into them. There's a measure on how big your population is by the BOD that comes into the plant. That's the bad stuff, biological oxygen demand. And in some cases, we got way more, the water and BOD is way out of proportion. There's too much water coming in, good clean water coming from storm runoff. When I say clean, it's not drinkable, but it's clean water. And that goes to the plant. It costs $1 million per gallon of treatment capacity. So if you want to treat 10 million gallons of water coming into the plant, I'm sorry, you want to treat 1 million gallons of water coming into the plant, it's going to cost you $10 million. Let's phrase that wrong. The cost is between $10 and $15 per gallon to treat that. Capital cost. Don't flush your drugs down the drain. You think they go to the treatment plant and take care of them? They're not designed to break down those complex chemicals. It goes right on through into the ecosystem. So get rid of your pharmaceuticals in a different way. Grease isn't so good either. So there's a concern about micronutrients. Has anybody heard about that? Tiny little bits of plastic. They're there, but there's no regulation on it yet. And then the last one, PFAS and PFOS. These are chemical compounds that were developed in the 40s and later. You find them in fire extinguisher foams. You find them in all kinds of chemicals. You know, the nice slick stuff on your pans, the old Teflon coating and Scotch Guard and all that stuff. That chemical does not break down. It does not go away. It's forever. But that's a problem because it gets more and more and more. Next slide. So here's the results of good water treatment in this community. That is a little bitty old bass, right by our outfall. Now, the fish you're going to see here, to me, I'm a fisherman. I want to see big fish, but biologists like to see certain kinds of fish because some of them are pollution intolerant. Go ahead. So 2 miles downstream from the plant, found smallmouth bass. We do a survey May through October where we shot a number of sites along the creek and do a survey, a census of the fish in the creek. It's a predictor of how healthy the creek is. This is kind of some of the things we see. We see a lot of little ones too. Go ahead. There's McLean. That's a nice smallmouth. Keep going. 4 miles. Long-nosed shark. He's kind of an ugly fish. He's got teeth. He's got big long snout on the front end. He's got an attitude also. But he is the top predator. He is the apex predator. If you got him, you got everything else underneath. His whole food chain's in that creek. Go ahead. That's a nice one. 36-inch. Probably 25 pounds. Go ahead. Live mussel. Mussels live a long time. They're filter feeders. They are very sensitive to ammonia. This guy could be decades old. They are very long-lived shellfish, right at the outfall. Keep going. And then 2 miles down, there's another one. It was the same day, by the way, they found these. And there's a scoring system for the fish index of biotic integrity in Sugar Creek. B plus A minus for this creek. Probably lately it's been an A minus. It's this 80 million gallon lagoon that we put in 07 to capture the stormwater. had a profound effect downstream on this IBI score. Because, you know, when the sewers aren't used much, they collect trash and debris and nasty stuff. Then you get a big storm and it all flushes out of the system, goes in the creek. Well, that 80 million gallon lagoon stops that and made a profound impact. The other thing that made a profound impact is when, in the 80s, when chlorine was stopped. So, questions?
You talked about generating methane and giving it to Cargill. Or
Yes.
to Cargill. Is there sufficient volume of methane that you could look at the cogeneration,
Yeah.
given the cost of your utility?
1988, we put in 2 Waukesha methane burning generators. And by 1994, we shut them down. They were costing more to maintain than the cost of electricity that they were generating. Another interesting thing, they ran fine, and then it needed a valve job at 10,000 hours. So I was like, why? And then a valve job at 8 and 6. And when it got down to 2,000 hours, the valves in the engine had to be replaced. It cost about 15,000, 18,000 each time. Well, what we found is the valve seats were burning up. They were not burning up, they were being eroded away. And there's a chemical called siloxane. It started showing up in greater and greater concentrations in the gas, in the gas that we burned in the methane digester. It was in our oil analysis. Siloxanes came from shampoos, hand lotions, anything that's slick. And siloxane, in the presence of high pressure and temperature, makes silicon dioxide, which is like sandpaper. So we had components of the engines destroying themselves. The answer is about a $1 to $2 million gas treatment system to handle those engines, and about $80,000 a year for chemical to keep them regenerated. So our electricity in this community is pretty reasonable. I had bought electricity 2 years in advance, 2 to 3 years in advance, and the contract we're running on right now is 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour. So, and electricity is the second most expensive cost for the district after people.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Could you address the tree farm, the sludge? Is this,
How much time we got?
well,
So we do have a tree farm, and we make sludge, okay?
Right.
We take that sludge and run it through a whole nother process called anaerobic digestion. We heat it up and we deprive it of in a non-oxygen rich environment, anaerobic. There's a different type of bacteria that converts that material kills the pathogens, the typhoid, the cholera, the nasty vectors that are in the vector attraction material that's in the sludge, and turns it into a stable product that can be used on farm fields, principally for corn and wheat. And the tree farm was developed so that we could grow crops and trees, so that any year, any time, we could apply this sludge instead of landfilling it. When we shut off landfilling in 91, it was costing $47 a ton, times 8,000 tons per year. So we bought the tree farm, bought semis, bought the spreading equipment for what we were paying for landfill costs. It was great, we were putting it on that farm. And then the neighbors all wanted the sludge. So we have been supplying fertilizer to crops in McLean County to about 300 acres a year throughout the county. We truck it, spread it. It's but there are restrictions on what kind of property, where the wells are located. There's state federal criteria where you can and can't put it. McLean County it's easy. Pennsylvania would be tough, but.
so do you raise these trees and sell them, or?
So we have trees. We got, you want some ash trees? We got about 17,000 dying ash trees. So they're pretty good sized trees now. So, no, the trees are gonna stay for at least longer. The plan was to harvest the hardwoods after 60 and 80 years. And it was quite valuable. So we're only 22 years into it. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Yeah, I just want to make the notes that appreciate the explanation, the presentation. Wastewater is part of the infrastructure. It's very important to city planning as in regional planning, and that's why we even have a representative from the district. Serving on our commission, and our chairman so happened also is the representative of the district. But we really things we don't see, but now you have a better understanding. We all have a better understanding. It's all part of city development, urban, regional development. But I appreciate 30 and a half years serving the county area.
Well, I gotta be thankful for working for a board that's been extremely knowledgeable in what we do and allowing long-term planning, because planning for a wastewater treatment plant is very long-term. So this conversion we're talking about at the West Plant, 10 years to do it. And they got a deadline in 2035. So it's about time we're gonna start breaking ground. The Southeast plant will only take 2 or 3 years, but the time frame to do something like this is incredible. Long-term planning is important. So people want to put in a factory somewhere and it needs service. Well, just the idea of getting service to them by the city, and then where's it going to take it, and then you got to treat it. There's a lot of steps that have to be accomplished to get there. So long-term.
Right. So if you recall the presentation by Economic Development Council, Patrick opened a few months ago here. It all ties in because when they're trying to attract developers, and then they look at the numbers, like some of those that Randy presents, and it makes sense, to sustain the operations, and that's really part of the considerations.
But just to tag on to what Ray is saying, if any of the commissioners are representing other taxing bodies and would be interested in making a presentation of what their particular organization is about and what they do, I think, we'd be open to that. We just have to schedule it for a meeting when there's not a whole lot of other business to discuss. That seems to be often the case. We don't often have heavy decision making to do. So, we could have a presentation on the airport, for example. That would be very interesting to me. My aviation interest. Sure. Any of the other organizations that are represented, I think it's good that as a relatively new commissioner, I'm in my fourth year now, fourth or fifth year. The first couple of years, I really didn't have much of an idea what was going on, what we were here for. I think presentations about the bodies that require regional planning is good for the commissioners.
Yeah. And
then we can pass the word to our friends and neighbors.
Yeah, definitely echo that, because as you see, or you're seeing, we give different updates on major projects. Some of those projects, it's not something we present you like every month. I mean, the completion of the project, but because the projects are ongoing, some of the major long-range, impactful projects, and so look at these meetings and presentations as kind of equipping yourselves to when we have those plans presented before you for the consideration that the knowledge, the information you've gathered that can be applied directly. Those plans will really impact the entire county or whatever geography that we worked on. So yeah.
So at this point, let's carry on with the Regional Housing Initiatives update from Tessa. Thanks, Tessa.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So Regional Housing Initiative update with the Housing Assistance Coalition. Members have provided over $5.2 million in COVID-19 related assistance since May 2020. Statewide applications for the Illinois Emergency Homeowner Assistance Fund will close on Tuesday, May 31st. With Housing Administration, the first draft of the annual Regional Housing Initiative report for March 2021 to April 2022 was presented to the staff committee during April's meeting for review and comment. The revised version will be presented to the committee at this month's meeting. And earlier today, MCRPC staff submitted a grant application to the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. The grant was called Research in Illinois to Spur Economic Recovery. The acronym for that is RISE. And the application requested funds for a plan to evaluate and expand and coordinate housing services and affordable housing options for households who are disproportionately affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. So more updates to that will come as we receive them. Any questions?
Thanks, Tessa.
Thank you.
And Jennifer?
Yes.
Jennifer's going to present on the pavement surface evaluation, the PASER project.
Thank you for explaining the acronym because I occasionally just don't know. We're coming down to the wire, both in terms of the deadline to finish this project, but also the work that's being done. According to Ryan Otto from the town of Normal, the consultant is now working on the final report and making progress. What's not yet done for the final report are some minor things like the final budget scenarios and recommendations both for pavement treatments and for preservation of pavement. So these things kind of go back and forth. They are aiming to have a presentation to the town council with the final report, hopefully on June 6th, but possibly not until June 20th. The grant for this project, of course, sunsets at the end of June. It looks like we're going to make it and meet that deadline. That's really all we have, and until we have a report to look at, there's not much more I can tell you except the process. And it's going to be, I think, your decision as to how much we'll learn about pavement preservation and materials and how much it's all going to cost. Any questions?
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Ray's update on the Vision Zero and the Go Safe project.
Sure. If it's okay, I'm be speaking from my chair here. As you recall, we recently submitted 2 grant applications to IDOT, Illinois Department of Transportation. And then, while we're waiting for the results, which one would come around July 1 and then the other one in the fall, we have recently made aware the federal government also has a pretty huge grant program. Of course, it's on a national level, and it's called SS4A, stands for Safe Streets for All. Safe Street for All. They will put out $1 billion for the next 5 years. Annually $1 billion for the next 5 years. But of course, this will be competitive. But it's, again, by the name of the program, it's called Safe Street for All. So it's related to safe streets, and they're looking for places to have like action plans for safety, a comprehensive safety plan for implementation projects and construction projects, and because it's nationwide, and so it's really competitive. The notice will not be available until probably later this month, so we'll be waiting on that. But because we have this Vision Zero Go Safe plan already adopted, we don't know how it compares to the federal criteria. So we'll be watching out if there's something we can take advantage of, or make it more detailed, more comprehensive to meet the guidelines, so pave way for future implementation projects and whatnot. So just kind of give you a heads up. We'll probably by next month we'll probably have more information to update you. But I think it's really exciting. The federal government having this national grant program, and it's something we actually like one step over 3/4 of a step ahead of that, because we already got the plan adopted, but it's a matter of syncing up with the criteria. So staff will be preparing ourselves next few weeks and just study more about this grant program. So we'll keep you posted.
Okay. Ray, do you want to go ahead with the long-range transportation plan?
Yes. As you are aware, this is ongoing. We gave an update last month. The Metropolitan Long-Range Transportation Plan, we are already conducting public engagement. As of today, I think we received close to 300 surveyed responses, and we look at more. We have 2 more months to collect those, because 5 years ago when the plan was last done, we received over 1,000 responses on the survey. So I would encourage you to help out. It is the flyer from us. I have this here, and in 3 different languages. So you have friends who speak English, Spanish, or French. We all have those books are covered. So regardless of age, we would like to hear input from kids to young adults to seniors, all the way, because it's long range, so it affects really could be many generations. So that's ongoing. We still also different ways with visit a number of places in organizations, and they're helping us to get the word out of the survey. And that's really part of the input gathering. We're trying to collect, to help the process. And as you're aware, we have the project steering committee in place, and they have been meeting monthly. And so there are another meeting this month. Also, we have focus group meetings. We have held 2 already, and another one will be held next week. And so we got in progress. But feel free, if you have questions or need to more details, contact me. I'd be happy to provide more details to you. And so, yeah, it's ongoing, on track, according to schedule. And as we said before, it's a plan that the final product we anticipate we have to by the end of October or early November. And it's a process typically will involve the approval by the transportation technical and policy committees, or the IDOT process. But we'll keep you apprised because some of you are involved in this process more directly than the others. But as Planning Commission, it relates to other things that we do, we work on. And so different modes of transportation, from the air to the ground, so really to the sea, although we don't have the water. We have the waterway, but it's not for navigation. And so yeah, we have the transit. We have the greenways. We have the motor and the non-motorized. So the walking, the cyclists is all have to be taken into consideration. So any thoughts, ideas? Yeah, let me know. We can definitely have a conversation. But again, please help us to hit at least 1,000 survey responses mark. So we're about 1/3.
It can also be accessed through the website if anybody doesn't have the email or the flyer at hand. Through our website, I mean, which if any of you don't visit it very often, it's always worth a visit. There's a lot of information there about our planning commission.
Yeah, and I've also emailed this out to you so you can help it with your organizations or your colleagues, families, your different groups. That would be great.
Thanks, Ray. Is there any other business to come before the meeting? Anybody attending virtually have anything they want to bring up? See Carl shaking his head. All right, I'd be open to a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? None. The motion passes. Thank you all very